is Messi! It is the cleanest of clean finishes from the best on the planet.
It's time for the biggest sports stories.
Liverpool, the champions of Europe, are top of the world.
The biggest interviews.
That such a great spectacle is ruined by such thuggish behavior.
And all the analysis right here.
He's the one player that has the arrogance to think that he can play in any stadium in the world and any pitch in the world in front of any player in the world and take them on.
Every weekday, it's my sport, it's your sport. It's ZiFM Sport. Let's join the team for the biggest show in the world of sport on ZiFM Stereo. My station, your station.
That's lights out, everybody. We are up and rolling. Welcome to it. This is ZiFM Sport on a Tuesday, Top Hit Tuesday, the lockdown edition. From our homes, the comfort of your homes, you'll hear from Barry Manandi, Mike Madoda, Mark Pause, Chris, and Alois Bunjira. My name is Sean Tafrenyika. I'm the producer of ZiFM Sport. As usual, on a Tuesday, we've got our Formula One report, proudly brought to you by Zimoko. We also want to extend a warm welcome to DSTV for Around the World in 60, so look out for that. There's also local sports news roundup, plus our power play, which will continue with the Michael Jordan flavor this week. And yesterday, it's all because we started the show by showcasing the biggest basketball player in the world on the biggest sports show in the world. We are talking about Michael Jordan. We're running a riveting 3-part series with our brilliant pundits Tsawumuza and Simba Fupajena in conversation talking about the GOAT. Tonight is part 2, and it will feature those 6 championships. So hit us up. The handle is at ZiFM Sport on Facebook and Twitter. Let us know what you think the legacy of Michael Jordan is in regards to those 6 NBA championships. So before we tip off with part 2 of our Michael Jordan series, let's go to Barry on the home front for the latest in local sports news.
The home front. Local sports news and analysis.
Zimbabwe Cricket Managing Director Givmo Makoni has expressed reservations about the national team's scheduled tours taking place in the next couple of months. Makoni said while his organization was hopeful that the situation would allow the home series against Afghanistan next month to take place, they were leaving room for disappointment as authorities in both countries battled to contain the coronavirus pandemic. Meanwhile, Zimbabwe Cricket has annulled the 2019-2020 domestic season due to the coronavirus pandemic. This means the first class competition, the Logan Cup, and the List A contest, the Pro 50 Championship, have been voided with no winners being declared. That's cricket news. Let's move on to swimming, where national swimming record holder Denilson Ciprianis has ended his off-season break and returned to the pool to kickstart his 2020-21 season preparations. The 17-year-old swimming sensation captained the Zimbabwe boys team at the Kana Zone 4 Swimming Championships held in February in Botswana, where they amassed 85 medals consisting of 34 gold, 31 silver and 20 bronze. He is eyeing the possibility of competing in South Africa in July should the neighboring country reopen sporting events. His father and trainer Eddie said they are using the lockdown to get Denilson into shape. We wrap it up with news from the Castle Lager Premier Soccer League, where ZiFA have set either August or September as the months for the possible start of the domestic football season, pending authority from the government, CAF and FIFA in what could be a conversion by default to the calendar used predominantly in Europe. CAF have also been realigning their football program to fit into the August to May calendar, something which the Premier Soccer League here have been fighting for since Farajere became chairman 2 years ago. Although the proposal by the top flight league was rejected amid concern from the lower leagues that they had not been consulted fully and the poor state of the stadia could complicate issues during the rainy season, it appears the change is now attracting growing support. That's your local sports news roundup.
Hi, my name is Zugba Amute, Los Angeles Clippers small forward, and you're listening to ZiFM Sport.
Yesterday, we tipped off the 3-part series on ZiFM Sports feature on Michael Jordan, presented to you by our knowledgeable pundits Tsawumuza and Simba Fupajena. It's based on ESPN's Last Dance documentary, which chronicles Michael Jordan's last season with the Bulls and is currently the highest rated television sports show. So for part 2, Tsawu and Simba will talk about the 6 not one, not two, but the 6 NBA championships that Michael Jordan won with the Chicago Bulls. That's 6 chips, 6 rings. Take it away, guys.
Welcome back, Simba. Today we carry on with the story of Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. And as we discussed yesterday at length, we dwelt on the early childhood development of Michael Jordan turning into the global superstar.
Did you just say Michael Jordan went through ECD?
Early childhood development. Oh my goodness, I like that. Simba, today let us look precisely at the accomplishments, the achievements of Michael Jordan, the basketballer with the Chicago Bulls, during that purple patch of reaching 2 3-peats between the years 1991 and 1998. The Chicago Bulls won in total 6 NBA titles. So let's start there and say we are picking this from the pains that the Bulls had learned, so to speak, at the hands of not only the Detroit Pistons, mind you, they could not get one over the Cleveland Cavaliers of all teams.
True. It was a situation where I think as they were progressing towards that first finals appearance, a few teams seemed to have started to become stumbling blocks pretty much. And the Cleveland Cavaliers, as we will go through it later on, started to be one of those teams. But interestingly for me, as soon as the Detroit Pistons were done away with, they don't seem to have come back as much as people thought. So their dynasty capabilities seem to have been cut short quite brutally by the way MJ and his team eventually got the better of them. As soon as they bulked up and got the measure of them on the physical stakes, their talent was pretty much enough to carry them through. But like you mentioned correctly, their road towards that first one as well was also littered with a few stumbling blocks, including the Cleveland Cavaliers.
I like the word you bring in immediately in this discussion, dynasty.
Yes.
For those uninitiated listeners, in basketball terms, the NBA is a merger of 2 basketball seasons way late in the 70s. So in the 80s, you had the dominance of the Celtics and the Lakers. And these 2 teams, as dominant as they were, Larry Bird and Magic Johnson teams, none of them managed to three-peat. Three-peat meaning to win the title on 3 consecutive seasons or 3 consecutive years. The Detroit Pistons won this twice. And on their 3rd attempt, they were topped by Michael Jordan and the Bulls on their way to their first, which coincidentally, as an Eastern Conference champion, they went on to play Magic Johnson's Los Angeles Lakers, who they beat in 5 games 4-1.
4-1.
So the Chicago Bulls dynasty, what is poignant about it is, number one, it stops the Detroit Pistons in achieving the holy grail of basketball titles. 3 consecutive titles in a row. Only since then, since the Bulls achieved that twice, Simba, are you aware how many NBA teams have achieved that?
The 3-peat?
Yes, since the Chicago Bulls 3-peated.
I'm going to hazard a guess and say maybe the Lakers with Kobe and Shaq.
Well done, mate. Since that time, only the Lakers with the tandem of Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal are the only team to have managed to three-peat. So for all the performances of LeBron James going to 8 straight NBA finals, for all the dominance of the Golden State Warriors, even eclipsing the Bulls season record, going 73-9 in a season.
Yeah.
Only one team has managed it once, and that is the Lakers. So this puts in light the achievements of Michael Jordan and those Chicago Bulls. Now let's look at those titles, Simba, probably quickly, looking at them as to who they faced, what they did. Already we've seen the Lakers. With the Lakers, it's important. Magic Johnson in that series officially passes the torch to Michael Jordan.
True. I think he does it in a way because I think at 4-1, there isn't much of a debate. That is as close to a sweep as you can get. So the passing on of the torch, I think even as you are watching the documentary, The Last Dance, you don't get any elements of animosity except when they met together for the 92 Olympic Games.
What I'll say before we leave that final series, and importantly, I keep saying, I ask myself, what are my own Michael Jordan favorite moments?
Yep.
I believe probably his best basketball move for me, his best basketball move was, I think it was in game 2 of that series finals, the NBA finals against the Lakers, when he appeared to be going for a dunk with his right hand. And immediately he switches the ball to his left hand and he lays the ball off the board. Magic Johnson says, when we saw him do that, we admitted that this is his world. This is a guy who's got enough hang time to say, wait a minute, I'm going to dunk this basketball. And in mid-A, he chooses, no, I can actually hang enough time to allow me to lay it in. For me, the best basketball move I've seen in an NBA finals, and probably for the rest of my life.
And you say in an NBA's finals, but I think he has had several similar moves of doing similar to that, and some of them he's actually got his back to the board. But what that also proves to me was that he was, like you mentioned, on a league of his own, in a plane of his own, because it's almost like it's basketball at the speed of thought. He's in the air and pretty much figuring out with his own body mechanics what I need to do whilst I'm still in the air, and processing all the data from what are these defenders doing. But as the defenders keep coming down, he's still up there, as Magic always points out, and then has the ability to switch to the left and then lay it in. So brilliant.
And I mentioned this point because when we say a sports person has moved a needle in a sport, or has taken the sport to the next level, these are the moments that explain how Michael Jordan transcends basketball to the next level. If he found it on earth, he took it to the atmosphere. That's what I'm saying. He meant there is a huge gap where he puts, and basically you find that even as of now, the number 1 draft pick of last season is Zion Williamson, correct?
Yeah.
That young man is telling you that he was told by his mother to watch Michael Jordan among some of the players that he had to have an influence on his game, and he has modeled his game around Michael Jordan, and that gives you the influence. Quickly moving on to game 2, the second title, title, Simba, is interesting because it takes us back to the draft days of Michael Jordan. Mind you, the Portland Trailblazers decided not to draft Michael Jordan simply because they believed that they're their own Michael Jordan, and this was Clyde Drexler. This is a guy who goes on. This is a guy he goes on to face in the NBA finals and to play against. Let us know exactly your thoughts and feelings about that title, Simba.
My thoughts and feelings, I think, at that stage, I think even from a Zim context, a lot of the feed that we're getting about the NBA was usually through the newspaper. So you'd have to wait the whole day, sometimes even 2, depending on how quickly they could get that information through. So by the time
I watched them, Simba.
You watched them, Snow. So as I represent the demographic that was here on in the motherland.
All right, go ahead.
What I quickly remember was that the anticipation of it all, because without having the appreciation of watching full matches of who the Glide Drexler was, people almost assumed that they were on the same level. And it even got to the point where I think they said the statistics between the two of them in the regular season were almost identical. So going into that, one of the key points that Magic Johnson makes is that he misspoke when he was working for one of the TV channels there. And he says, we're about to see the 2 best players in the NBA. And then he put Drexler in the same bracket as Michael Jordan. And that was all the motivation that he needed. On their way to those finals, they had swept the Heat 3-0, 4-3 with the Knicks, which are now becoming one of a bogey team for them. I think one of the tightest post-season encounters they've had. They get to the Cavs again, close 4-2. Then it's Clyde the Glide, who they eventually beat 4-2. And what he did was he deliberately opted to attack Clyde, just so that there's no debate anymore. It's not about, okay, I was in a team that beat your team. No, I beat you to get to the title. So the debate ends there. And as I'm doing this, I'm also lining up my second back-to-back MVP's finals accolade.
I'm going to say this, Simba. I remember vividly watching those games back then in the 90s. And I'll say this. In terms of a team that really took basketball, and when I say basketball, I mean play to the Chicago Bulls, it was that team. The Portland Trail Blazers, Clyde Drexler, Terry Porter, Xavier McDaniel, these were guys who had it. They were probably, indeed at that time, the strongest thing to have been coming out of the West, which I really need to point out. You will find that in the reign of the Bulls, there was very little dominance coming out of the Western Conference in terms of a team that would come this year, repeat next year to play in the NBA Finals. So in the first repeat, they play a Lakers team which had Magic Johnson at the decade of the 80s into the 90s. And that team disappears. You get the Pistons, who were stopped in the East. Okay, that's the closest you have of a team that had the dynasty like we mentioned. But in the West, it was the Lakers, followed by the Blazers. I think the Blazers left that stick to the Sixers, Charles Barkley and the Sixers.
The Suns.
Yes, and the Suns. Yeah, the Phoenix Suns. Yes, you're correct. The Phoenix Suns of Charles Barkley and Kevin Johnson. There was no team. The only time that they played a team consistently was at the back end of the Six titles, where they then take on back-to-back the Utah Jazz. So I think this is a dynamic which seems to clog the NBA every now and then, where you have one conference being dominant over the other. And in this case, we've got the Chicago Bulls in the Eastern Conference with a consistency. But in the Western Conference, there is team after team coming out. Very, very much poignant looking at how the NBA has been, especially during the last few years where the Golden State Warriors were so dominant.
Exactly. And I think what that has also done is at least in that era, and maybe now coming a bit more into this one, it has robbed fans of a rivalry of potential dynasties as well. Because what LeBron James has managed to do by going 8 straight is he's been the permanent fixture in that. But he's been doing it with different franchises. And he hasn't been necessarily meeting the same guys along the road, along the way. Similar with Michael Jordan, you cannot then pick one specific individual that he can say, I needed to tune myself to say we're going to go with these guys again, until obviously that last series, the back-to-backs with the Utah Jazz. But like you've mentioned, in the third one of the first three-peat, they go up against Sir Charles Barkley, himself at that moment, the regular season MVP. So unlike Clyde, he had taken something away from Michael Jordan and had the accolades to say, look, we are now going into a championship battle. The regular season, I've been the best. Can I now kick on and maybe catch you guys off guard and prove to myself, because he was not necessarily full of himself, but he had enough confidence to also believe that he was the best. And going into that finals, he had the accolades to back it up. But you will tell us how it eventually mapped out.
I think what's important, Simba, I'm happy you bring out the fact that Charles Barkley had won the season MVP. And this is, I think there are sides to Michael Jordan that people must, in the first series when we were discussing this, we said you must note and you must accept how competitive this guy was. When he lost the season MVP, I think to Michael Jordan, it's now come out clear that he said to Charles Barkley, you can have that, the season MVP, but I'll definitely have the championship. And that's something I'll make sure you don't have. So this is how competitive this guy was at the time when he was playing. To say that, look, if somebody thought they could get on his level, on his plane, he would then ascend even higher, say, okay, I will look for whatever it is that's going to motivate me so that I destroy you. Michael Jordan, I think it's now come out more clearly that he probably didn't have NBA friends. One person to really come close to him over the years apparently is Kobe Bryant. So the Phoenix Suns, hard as they may have tried, still fell short, Simba. They fell short, and probably then we move on to the third one, the last one of the three-peat, which was against the Seattle Supersonics, where, if my memory serves me right, you had according to me, one of the most electrifying point guards, a very short Gary Payton, and probably one of the best dunkers that the league has ever had. Yes, our number 40 guy.
There's a slight, there's a snippet that they show when he's at the All-Star games, and I think because he knew that in terms of the West, that the Seattle Supersonics are one of the teams that were likely to come out. I'm not sure if it's exactly the same season that they eventually met in the finals, but he's busy saying to Peyton, yeah, maybe we'll see you in the finals. And Gary Payton's like, yeah, we're going to be doing this. Like, no, I know we will be there. You guys need to go and handle your business to show whether or not you'll be there with us. And that level of confidence, I think even during that bit in between when he eventually then stepped aside for the retirement that was eventually ended about 2 seasons later, what people then went to look at to say what was the motivation for the retirement? Was it him being fatigued by fame? Was it the gambling issue that had started to come up and the press was jumping on? And I remember some of the interviews that were had with him where they say, when he was asked point blank, do you have a gambling problem? And he says, I don't necessarily have a gambling problem as most people would look at it. What I do admit I have is a competitiveness problem. And we had touched on this yesterday when we said, right from his upbringing, this was fueled in him. Blitter torch that was never doused. And even to the point where when he was inducted in the Hall of Fame, he consistently mentioned that ferocity, that desire to always outdo everybody else.
Correct. I think we must take note that the first three-peat is Magic Johnson passing the torch and the Lakers losing in 5. Why do I question the retirement? Because the 2-year hiatus he takes is at a moment when he's at the peak of his game.
Yeah.
He comes back, says the Chicago Bulls back on another three-peat. And the question is simple, Simba. If Michael Jordan does not retire, are the Chicago Bulls in 8 consecutive year dynasty in the NBA? That's the question I'll ask you today.
I say very likely, because if the motivation is there, which is only the thing that is keeping him there, in terms of ability, there's none other than that. And without Michael Jordan, these guys make it at the very most to the conference semifinals. So they were not necessarily a rubbish team without him. So they're good enough without him to make it to the conference semifinals. So if he's that layer of gloss and the X factor to push them 2 more rounds, then yes, I do put it in the argument that the possibility of them going 8 straight is there. The only issue is after they've done, like, let's say the first 5, does that motivation keep kicking in for them to do another 3? Or does Jerry Krause then think, you know what, we need to pull the trigger even quicker? At the end of those near 2 seasons, it just took 2 words to announce that I'm back. And boy was he back. The regular season. I remember the words. The regular season, this is what his body of work was. Good enough for him to be the MVP in the All-Star game, because everybody wants him to be there anyway. But on merit, MVP in the regular season. And now people are wondering, is he going to lead them to the finals? And he does. And he does it through first round sweep of the Heat. In the conference finals, they meet with the Magic. I'm not sure if this is the same Magic that now had Shaq and Co, but I stand to be corrected.
It had Penny Hardaway, Nick Scott, and Shaq.
Excellent. So now these seemingly heir apparents are coming through, and then we've already touched on them meeting up with the Seattle Supersonics, and then they beat those ones 4-2 in that final. If you remember anything that touched you from that particular final before we move on to the last 2.
Look, I think for me, I always say the Bulls. There's an element of this team which you must touch on. Phil Jackson as coach.
Yeah.
The triangular offense, Simba, was so brilliant. At any given time, it would give each attacking option 33 options to execute a scoring basket, and therefore, I think it had become so refined. the first part of the second three-peat with the Sonics was straightforward. When it comes to the Utah Jazz, I think what I would say when we look at the second three-peat is one moment which I would describe Michael Jordan. It's the last, well, it's two moments. The flu game, the 38 points with the flu. Happy that they were playing with the flu those days, Simba. Because it was today, that game would have gone ahead. But anyway, away from that, the last of their 6 titles, the signature moment, Michael Jordan wins the ball in his backcourt, drives it up the court. They were down 1, and he takes the last shot, dribbling off Byron Scott to nail a flawless mid-range jumper, which happens to be the last shot of that Chicago Bulls dynasty and the last shot of Michael Jordan in a Bulls uniform.
Is that the one where he then just hangs his hand up and waits for
Absolutely, the picture perfect pose.
The iconic moment of this is how I'm ending it. And
absolutely, that's it. And for me, with that shot, I think we've done a quick but thorough look into the 6 titles that the Bulls have. What do you think about it today?
I think that's where we cap it off, and when we come back for the final installments, hopefully we'll open up with also 2 words. We are back.
You know, famous rapper Nicki Minaj, in all her wisdom, has a line in one of her songs that's called No Frauds, and she says, they say numbers don't matter, but when it comes to discussing the kings, they turn around and say LeBron ain't got 6 rings. Guess who's got 6 rings? Michael Jordan. There were back-to-back three-peats. There was the 91, 92, 93, and then there was the 96, 97, and 1998 championships. So technically, Michael Jordan won 6 straight NBA championships. Okay? But because there was that break between the 1993 and 1994 season, some say that does taint his legacy a little bit. I do think it's rather absurd because he came back and then he won another 3, dominated. And from the moment that he has been on the court, Michael has always dominated. He's always let his basketball do the talking, and he's won championships. So that has to say something. But maybe where that argument fits in was that at the end of that 1993 third championship, Michael Jordan did look tired. He did seem weary. And unfortunately, a bit later on, his father passed away and he decided to give his hand at baseball and took that break. But then he came back, after missing the game, and he won another 3. So maybe there could be an argument made by just looking at how weary he was and how tired he seems by the end of that 1993 season. But the thing with Michael Jordan, though, is that he always raised his level when he was playing basketball. He always emptied the tank. He was ultra competitive. Even Simba talked about it when he said that he admitted to having a competition problems. So who knows? I reckon that if he had strayed throughout, the Chicago Bulls could have won 6 straight, which would have been unprecedented. But let's remember something. Michael Jordan didn't do this all by himself. There had to be pieces that were in place. And for that, tune in tomorrow for part 3 as we round off the Michael Jordan feature. Let's keep the interaction going. However, the handle is at ZiFM Sport on Facebook and Twitter. Let me know what you think Michael Jordan's legacy is in basketball. Now, coming up next is the Formula 1 report. It's followed by the latest in international sports news with Around the World in 60 from Chris. And then after that, it's the Power Play.
From sunny Melbourne to the streets of Monaco, the deserts of Bahrain to the jungles of Brazil, get up to speed on the Formula 1 report. The Formula 1 report is proudly brought to you by Zimoco, the home of F1 brands Mercedes-Benz and Alfa Romeo in Zimbabwe. Zimoco, specialized service for special brands.
Welcome back to this week's Zimoco Formula 1 report. We hope that Zimbabweans are keeping safe and remaining cautious in these uncertain times. Now, we'd like to advise our valuable customers and potential customers that we are now open from Monday to Friday from 8 a.m. through to 3 p.m. at our Borrowdale showroom, Borrowdale Service Centre and Douglas Road workshops. Please note that for your own safety and the safety of our staff, we require that everyone entering our premises must wear wear masks, sanitize their hands at points of entry and exit, and exercise social distancing measures. We also urge you to try and book an appointment for a service so that we can manage the number of customers in a department at any given time. Our comprehensive list of telephone numbers and email addresses can be found on our website. That's www.zimoko.co.zw under the Contact Us section. Don't forget, you can also direct any queries to our Zimoko Business WhatsApp number 0772 589 624. That's Zimoko Business WhatsApp number again, 0772 589 624. Stay tuned to find out more from Zimoko.
Straight into our Formula One report, and Managing Director Ross Brawn of Formula One has agreed a $145 million budget cap for teams next year and will continue to try and tighten that for future seasons. Brawn also said after a teleconference with teams and the governing FIA that a much fairer prize fund would feature in a new commercial agreement due by the end of this year. Formula One season has yet to start, with the first 10 races postponed or cancelled by the coronavirus pandemic. A major rewrite of the technical regulations has been delayed to 2022, with teams carrying over this year's cars to 2021. Red Bull boss Christian Horner says the draconian health protocols are being planned for the Austrian Grand Prix could become the blueprint for how other venues hold Formula One races this year. Red Bull ring chiefs are pushing on their hopes of holding the Formula One season opener on July the 5th, providing that European travel restrictions have been eased in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic. A number of proposals have been put forward, including a ban on fans and media, strict isolation for F1 personnel from the local community, and extensive testing for those at the venue. Speaking exclusively to motorsport.com about the Austrian GP plans, Horner said Red Bull are really committed to getting the championship off the ground. They've put in a huge effort to get the race underway in Austria.
Alright, we'd like to remind you that we have stock of certain Mercedes-Benz and Jeep models that are on offer at unbeatable prices. Please email one of our sales team at sales@zimoko.co.zw or pop into our Zimoko showroom at Sam Levy's Village to see what's on offer. Furthermore, we'd like to offer the first 50 customers who bring their Mercedes-Benz, Jeep, Mitsubishi Fiat, Haval or GWM passenger vehicle in for a service at either our Borrowdale Service Centre or Douglas Road Workshops a 20-litre Redan fuel coupon. Now that is a unbelievable offer. You get 20 litres of fuel for being one of the first 50 customers to bring your vehicle in for a service. Obviously it needs a service because it's been sitting around during the lockdown. Now we're looking forward to welcoming you back at our Zimoko workshops. Terms and conditions do apply. Remember, wear your face masks. Stay safe, Zimbabwe, and together we will get through this.
The Formula One Report is proudly brought to you by Zimoko, the home of F1 brands Mercedes-Benz and Alfa Romeo in Zimbabwe. Zimoko, specialized service for special brands.
Hi, my name is Simba, Los Angeles Clippers small forward, and you're listening to ZiFM Sport.
Around the world in 60 seconds. International sports news.
We take you around the world in 60, courtesy of DSTV. We take off in New Zealand, where loose forward Sam Cane has been named the new captain of the All Blacks. The All Blacks confirmed the news on their official website earlier today. Cane succeeds Kieran Reid, who retired from the All Blacks after last year's Rugby World Cup. The 28-year-old Cane, who's also the chief skipper, has played 68 tests since making his test debut against Ireland in 2012. All Blacks head coach Ian Foster said he was delighted to name the team's new leader. We head over to England, where Owen Morgan says England's players will have to maximise their limited chances to prepare for the 2020 World Cup, scheduled for later this year in Australia. The England and Wales Cricket Board last month extended the suspension of the professional game in the country until the 1st of July due to the coronavirus outbreak. Cricket authorities said at the end of April that they were still planning for the World Cup in October, although Cricket Australia has conceded the entire international schedule is in doubt due to the virus. We touch down in the United States of America, where Taylor Fritz believes it is unrealistic to expect tennis to return to normality before the US Open in August. The coronavirus outbreak has played havoc with the tennis season, causing the cancellation of Wimbledon and pushing the French Open back until September. Tournament organizers are hopeful that the US Open, scheduled to begin in New York on the 25th of August, can go ahead, but world number 24 Fritz isn't so sure. Now, if edge of your seat, high-speed thrills are the way you like it, then today is made for you. There's some really great motoring action rounded off by the MotoGP movie Faster at 8:30 p.m., which looks at Valentino Rossi in his prime and those trying to take him down. It's really unmissable viewing for motorsport fans, so come and see what the viewer's choice and primetime segments have in store for you on SuperSport 1.
With the all-new SuperSport Relive, we reorganized all 12 channels to bring you your favorite moments from football, athletics, WWE, and more. SuperSport 1 is now available on DSTV Compact, and SuperSport 3, the Premier League channel, is on DSTV Family, while 7 is on Access. Get DSTV and relive the greatest stories in sport, from Ali to Zidane and more, with the new SuperSport Relive.
Hi, this is Mike Madod, and you can catch me and the team for all the latest breaking news out of the world of sport, local as well as international, on your favorite station, my station, your station, ZiFM. We are Z-Team on ZiFM Sport.
You're tuned into ZiFM Stereo, my station, your station. This is the lockdown edition of ZiFM Sport. We're doing a 3-part special feature on Michael Jordan, and we've got through part 1 and part 2. Can't wait for the finale tomorrow with part 3. But for now, let's get the latest in football news in the beautiful game.
The big leagues, the big teams, the big players. The beautiful game on ZiFM Sport. All the rivalry.
Here is Harry Kane for Tottenham. Oh, what a goal! A classic derby goal from Harry Kane. Catch him if you can.
All the stars.
Oh, back he is, Liverpool 2 in front. Talk about impudence. Talk about improvisation. Talk about Sadio Mane.
And all the game-changing moments.
And Raheem Sterling rattles it home. And once more, City are in front in a trice.
All the updates from the Premier League on ZiFM Sport.
Now, according to Professional Footballers Association Chief Executive Gordon Taylor, the Premier League is considering playing halves less than 45 minutes long when football returns from the coronavirus pandemic. Following a video conference involving all 20 Premier League clubs last week, the determination to complete the season, which has been suspended since March the 13th, was restated by the league. Sources have said that the season will be concluded behind closed doors at neutral venues, and Taylor has suggested that league matches could be shortened. Alright, now this is certainly drifting from the sublime to the ridiculous. The English Football League chairman Rick Parry also told the Digital Culture, Media and Sport Committee, saying this: I don't think we should be ruling out any creative ideas at the moment, given all the challenges we face. Perhaps the thinking is it would alleviate the tiredness. Okay. Now, I understand that the number one rule of brainstorming is that there's no bad idea. Everybody's idea must be considered, and everybody must air their view freely. And for me, this is an idea, since I wasn't part of the brainstorm, I wasn't in the room when they were brainstorming, I can trash this idea. This is ridiculous. There's no need for there to be less than 45-minute halves. I think that the game should be kept as fundamentally close to the real thing as is possible, as it is. Playing in an empty stadium, playing where there are no fans, there's no atmosphere, is challenging and new for both the players on the pitch and also the fans watching at home on television. So let us get used to that first and foremost, and as opposed to now starting to watch games that are shorter than 90 minutes long. What's next? Are you going to say, well, okay, we're going to end the season with 5-a-side matches? No. I think let's keep the game as close to its natural state as is possible. Yes, we are all sort of battling the coronavirus pandemic. It came out of nowhere. It came out of a place whereby we didn't think that it would be as detrimental to sport and to business and to life as it has been. But certainly we must consider having life as close to normal as is possible. Now, they talk about tiredness. Already there's been a suggestion that they may be able to allow 5 substitutions when football returns. I think that's cool. That already alleviates some of the tiredness. Also, I think teams are going to have at least 3 weeks to prepare before leagues actually kick off. We understand that the Bundesliga has a confirmed date, and that is the right direction. But teams have been preparing and getting fit, as it were, to ensure that they're able to perform. Also, there's no team fitter than the other. So it's equal and even Stevens. Let's keep the game as it is. We understand in Spain, La Liga is another league where changes are being considered to the game, with ESPN sources saying they want to include conversations between players, coaches and referees during the games, which are picked up by pitchside microphones. This isn't much of a change. I think we've been crying out to know what referees actually say, how they justify their decisions. So I think that's a great one. It's a great innovation that's going to cause there to be a lot more interest when we get back to watching football on television. So that one I certainly support. It's not affecting the fundamental of what we call football, and football is 90, and Nike said it best a few years ago when they launched their sub-brand in football. Total 90 minutes of football is what we switch on our TVs for, what we go to stadiums for. So let's keep that as it is. I don't think that's a good idea at all. However, there is a slight challenge because we understand that ESPN has been told that a growing number of Premier League players do not want to play football during the global pandemic. And at some point, the players are going to have to be engaged. And if they're not willing to play, football doesn't return. Hopefully, they'll change their mind. But don't change your mind about turning this into a less than 90-minute game. It's 90 minutes. It is football. The way we love it, let's see it remain as such.
Z. Horsepower unmatched. Torque to beat the best. Speed unrivaled. Sleek and easy on the eye. Let's get behind the wheel of football engineered to perfection. The Bundesliga, made in Germany.
Some really, really great news coming out of Germany. The Bundesliga appears to be edging closer to a return to football. Tomorrow, German Chancellor Angela Merkel will speak with the Prime Ministers of Germany's 16 states about a potential loosening of restrictions implemented due to the coronavirus pandemic. A decision on the Bundesliga and Bundesliga 2 is expected then. So according to Reuters and others, the negotiations have gone really well and the Bundesliga is set to make a comeback. This return would make it the first league in Europe to play since the coronavirus update. WAZ report that the first game could even take place on the 15th of May, and this is just 9 days after the decision is made. We've been tracking Germany quite closely, and one of the things that we noticed was that the coronavirus pandemic, the way it was being managed in Germany and the way that they were able to curb the spread quite significantly has been different from other European countries, and they were most likely to return first. So the German clubs actually went back to training last month, and even though they had restrictions, this was ahead of a planned return to full training. And then the game's due to start this month, which will apparently still be going ahead. So it was thought that the plans for the Bundesliga to return may be delayed, and this was after 3 Cologne players tested positive for coronavirus last week. So it was this trio of players was actually put into a 14-day quarantine, and training was able to continue. So another 10 positive cases were discovered from a total of 1,724 tests that were carried out on players and staff from clubs in the top 2 divisions. So a second wave of tests is due to take place this week, but it simply looks like the players who are testing positive are being taken out of the training, and everything continues and everything goes ahead. It's important to remember just the number of stakeholders that are involved in leagues like the Bundesliga. You have your broadcasters, you have the government, you have corporates who are all involved, and the large sums of money that have been put into this. The league simply needs to be completed one way or another, and I think that's now the approach that a number of leagues are going to take, is that the leagues will continue, the leagues will be completed, and there will be some strange things that will happen. For example, players won't be able to touch each other. For example, during goal celebrations, there's a possibility that players will play in masks. And obviously, it's going to be a little bit strange watching football and there are no people in the stadium, but the leagues will go ahead. I think that's the most important thing that people are gunning for at the moment, is the continuation and the completion of the different leagues in Europe. The Bundesliga is set to kick off first, and this could happen on the 15th of May.
Z. The league that makes football oh so beautiful. where artistry and strokes of genius are the order of any day. Where the game is played with a smile and the little master creates his magic.
It's Lionel Messi!
All the news from the Spanish La Liga on ZiFM Sport.
The goal the world wants it!
Right, let's find out what's happening in Spain, and news is from La Liga, from the capital city, Madrid. The team, Atletico Madrid, Los Rojiblancos. Their midfielder, Thomas Partey, has decided he wants to join Arsenal at the end of this protracted season, according to reports. The Ghana international produced a fine performance against Liverpool before sport was halted by the coronavirus pandemic, and he wants to move to England when the transfer window does eventually open. Mikel Arteta had identified Partey as a transfer target earlier in the season, with the Gunners boss hoping to convince the board to strike a deal for the 26-year-old when football returns to normality. The reports are also claiming that Arsenal could consider a swap deal offering coveted striker Alexander Lacazette to Atletico, with Partey arriving at the Emirates Stadium. It's a deal that I can see coming, because the French attacker, who's been deployed mainly as a number 10, hasn't exactly lit it up at Arsenal, and his form over the last 10 to 12 months has been absolutely woeful. He hasn't come up with a lot of goals, and he certainly hasn't come up with a lot of assists. And the one area where Arsenal do need strengthening is at the heart of midfield. If you take a look at the profile of Arsenal's players over the last decade, they've had some really silky ball players who have a fine touch, really good passes. Players like Jack Wilshere, Thomas Rosicky, Cesc Fabregas, Alan Ramsey, Mesut Ozil. But the one thing that they have lacked is the steel. The one thing that they have lacked is the leadership and organization that is critical in central midfield, and that is where they fall short in comparison to the would-be challengers in the league. If you take a look at Liverpool, they've got Jordan Henderson and Fabinho, as well as Wijnaldum, who are playing in those positions, in those areas. You take a look at Manchester United. Yes, Fred looked like a fraud when he came on board, but he's come along in leaps and bounds this season, and so has young Scott McTominay. They are also, of course, boasting the creative talents of Bruno Fernandes and Paul Pogba, if he does decide to play. And then Chelsea have got Kante, who's arguably the best at doing that business. Manchester City, Fernandinho, Gundogan, they're spoilt for choice when it comes to central midfielders, but Arsenal have been a bit short, especially when it comes to steel, leadership and organisation. That's why this move by Mikel Arteta for Thomas Partey makes sense. If you make him the foil for the creative talents of Mesut Ozil, I think Arsenal will have a midfield that can match the best in the league and hopefully spur them to greater heights next season under Mikel Arteta. Mikel Arteta, of course, he's a student of Pep Guardiola, so we know that organization is certainly a big part of his game. He's not going to give easy goals away. And that's where Arsenal have been a bit guilty in recent seasons of giving away cheap goals, especially in the big games when they come up against the likes of Liverpool, Arsenal, the likes of, Chelsea, Tottenham Hotspur, or even Manchester United and Man City. They have shipped in quite a lot of goals. So he wants to add a bit of strength, a bit of fight in midfield. And I love Thomas Partey, his performances, whether he's been playing for the Black Stars or Los Rojiblancos, Atletico Madrid, he's always been a fighter. And when you play in La Liga, you know that you are a player who's got a fine touch. You're a player who's able to use the ball very well. And what I like about him is also his efficiency with the use of the ball, because Atletico Madrid classically are a defensive side. They're classically a counter-attacking side. So what it means is that Diego Simeone emphasizes and places a lot of emphasis on the efficient use of the ball, that when we do get the ball, okay, even if it's 32% of the time in a football match or 42% of the time in a football match, we must move that ball and use it effectively. And Thomas Partey is able to bring that same mentality to Arsenal, that same efficiency at the heart of midfield, able to win the ball back and then initiate the first move. And of course, the counter-attack, Arsenal will certainly be a better side than before. And of course, he'll be able to protect the back four. The back four at Arsenal has sometimes looked shoddy because they haven't had much in the way of protection. With Thomas Partey, they'll have more than plenty.
The Nerazzurri The Black and Blues, Inter Milan.
It's Romelu Lukaku, and it was never in doubt. He's a beast at the best of times, but this season he has become a monster.
The Giallorossi, the Yellow and Reds, AS Roma.
Belotti has a go! Tremendous hits! That's what he's capable of!
La Viola, the Purple Ones, Fiorentina.
Franck Ribéry seals a glorious win for Fiorentina with a sumptuous goal at San Siro.
The Bianconeri, the Black and Whites, Juventus.
Ronaldo seals yet another 3 points for Juventus.
Tough yet colourful. The best of Italian football on Z.
To the Serie A we go, and Juventus intend to keep Paulo Dybala for as long as possible and Gonzalo Higuain for the 2020-21 season, while Giorgio Chiellini and Gianluigi Buffon are set for contract extensions, with Cristiano Ronaldo now the standout star in the team. Fellow forwards Dybala and Higuain have repeatedly been linked with moves away from Turin. Dybala was a reported target for Manchester United and Tottenham last year, while Higuain had appeared set for a permanent departure at the same stage as he returned from unsuccessful loan spells with Milan and then Chelsea.
Z. The beating drum. The roaring fans. Take a ride on the wild side with the Africa Report on ZiFM Sport.
Kaizer Chiefs have moved to rubbish claims that they are said to be crowned ABSA Premiership champions when the PSL Executive Committee met this week. The PSL is reportedly set for a meeting on Thursday to determine the way forward for the remainder of the 2019-2020 season, which has been suspended for nearly 2 months. The league took a decision on March 16 to suspend the campaign amid the threat of COVID-19 infiltrating stadiums before State President Cyril Ramaphosa declared a nationwide lockdown. With movement restrictions gradually being lifted by government, domestic football decision makers are expected to come to a resolution on whether the remaining rounds of fixtures will be played out once it is deemed safe to do so, or if the season should be finalized as things stand. A Facebook profile page attempting to impersonate Chiefs boss, football manager Bobby Motaung, with nearly 20,000 likes, has since been leaking updates that the club are likely to be crowned champions during the meeting. A later update also indicated that the league would be promoting 2 teams from the championship with no relegation to form an 18-team premiership next season. However, this has now been rubbished as false and misleading by Amakosi, who insists that Motaung does not have any social media accounts. Yeah, this is quite interesting that we hear so many stories, because of the COVID-19. I think that, this comes because there is a lack of information coming from the authorities. There is too much quietness that is going around in that space. People will tend to just come up with all sorts of false news, fake news, and all that. I think that as clubs, as the Premier Soccer League, as SAFA, they need to constantly inform people through their official channels that this is what is going to happen, this is what is happening right now, so that people don't keep on speculating about these statements. But when I look at the issue of the ABSA Premiership, I know for sure that there is a meeting, yes, but from the grapevine I've heard that it's going to be the matches are going to be played. They are going to finish off the season, even if it means playing 1 match a day. They are looking at the situation of playing under closed doors with no fans, so that they can actually finish off the season. Probably they are doing this for sponsors and all that, so that no one can actually grumble and complain about it, which is, for me, is a very, very good idea. They need to do that so that the season is completed and we can start the new season on a clean slate.
Z.
Unfortunately, we run out of time. We gotta go. Tomorrow will be the final part of our 3-part feature on Michael Jordan, so don't miss it. Until then, take care of yourself and stay safe.
And it's Messi! It is the cleanest of clean finishes from the best on the planet.
The biggest sports stories.
Liverpool, the champions of Europe, on top of the world.
The biggest interviews.
That such a great spectacle is ruined by such thuggish behavior.
And all the analysis right here.
He's the one player that has the arrogance to think that he can play in any stadium in the world and any pitch in the world in front of any player in the world and take them on.
Every weekday, it's my sport, it's your sport. It's ZiFM Sport on ZiFM Stereo. My station, your station.